So, Crispin, what can go wrong with an update? Like, are there any, I don't know, you call them best business practices, but what is the opposite of that? Like, what do you just absolutely don't do? Like, or the moments, or as we say, gotchas?
Yeah. So, we were just talking about automation and the pitfalls thereof, right? Potentially. Um, yeah, things really come to mind that we see all the time in all kinds of businesses. And fire and forget, right, is a phrase I use quite often to clients. Don't fire an update out and forget about it. Um, you need to know what this is actually, again, to our points earlier, what it's going to be doing. Like, what is this update or update's going to do to this endpoint? And are you following the rules? Because a little earlier we spoke about updates, upgrades, patches, right? Minor, major, version numbers, product version numbers within Windows Installer is a set of rules you've got to stick by, right? And you can manipulate them slightly if you know what you're doing, but like all these things, if you start to go off road outside the rules, right? Today's problem is yesterday's kind of malaise, right? If you're sloppy and just create an update with what not in it, don't think about its size or its approach or its content or its audience, and don't be surprised within a week's time that you don't really have any clarity on who got the update and what the impact was. So, making sure these things are well formed. It sounds really boring. Oh, here he is again talking about design and due process and planning, but it's only as good as the design enabled it to be. You need to craft these things really, really well. And use MSI, use MSIX, use the version numbering, do the testing. There's a lot of infrastructure there to help you. Um, but yeah, we'll talk, I think, a little bit after this about deployment approaches, but all the things that we know about generally in software, don't do big bang, right? Run in parallel, do testing, have rollback, document it, inform the audience, make it user friendly. Like the classic is, an installation that presents the end user with a whole bunch of questions and they don't know what on earth to choose. Right. And so updates you find are often, like you said earlier, Rob, they're self-targeting. There shouldn't really be any questions to the end user because they're probably not going to know what to
Yeah.
answer.
Well, what about the author of the application and the updates? I mean, people change. They retire. They grow in
Yeah.
their careers. How do if I didn't create the original installation or the application and it's, years down the road, I could
Mm.
just be further creating an update that actually doesn't address the source, the actual problem. It just kind of patches it, right, or band-aids it. How do what kind of guidance or planning can a customer do if it's a not a patch, not a upgrade, right? But I need a new release, a new version.
Mm.
Is that a consideration? Because if I wasn't the original author and there's customization, or if I just don't know really what's in there, and I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
how previous updates were provided for, let's just call it version one, and
And
I'm
you
on
might not even have,
1.1, 2,
and
3,
you might,
4, when do I go to version 2.0?
yeah. I think so. Two comments on that really. One is, it's a question the business has to ask itself. You need to have a sit down as a business. It's not just a product manager problem. It's not just a
Hmm.
marketeer's problem. Not just a finance problem because finance might be pushing for a renewal or an upgrade that might or might not be paid, right? The marketing people are probably targeted on getting everyone up to the latest version, right? Or we want 80% of users on version 6 by quarter four. That will probably link to renewals and revenue and ARR and all that good stuff. The product manager just wants to stick to his roadmap, keep his pipeline roadmap clear and don't slip and get a really good quality build out when he says he is. And, you know, the business will need to give due consideration to it's the classic of any software company, right? And you hear it all the time. Or why does Xsoft keep adding functions to this product? Why do I keep needing to upgrade all the time? Right?
Hmm.
Just can you not just stick as it is? It works for me, that's fine. But you're one of 100,000 users. And the reality of business is people aren't going to pay for stasis. They don't pay to sit in the current situation. They expect a growth in the product. And like a business has to grow every year by X%, otherwise it's not really in business. It's just sat there in the middle. In addition, technologies change. So what worked 10, 20 years ago, everyone was editing INI files in the registry, right? That isn't really done anymore. So you've got to move of the times, frankly. The old adage, if it isn't broken, don't fix it, works to a certain degree. But we're not kind of driving around a horse and cart. Horse and carts worked. They did the job. They got you from A to B, but no one uses a horse and cart very much. So you've got to stick with go with the new technologies, and they'll bring you all kinds of benefits. I think just to your point about the person who wrote the installer isn't around, and hey, they might not even be in the business, or they probably didn't document it anyway because they want to keep all their knowledge to themselves to keep their job, right? See it all the time. And one of the things we use Flexera's technology like Admin Studio to do snapshots. And that gives us the ability to look inside the project. I mean, if it's an installation project, again, it's Revenera, so we're in great position because who is in a better position than Revenera to look inside, open the bonnet? But maybe it's not either of those. Maybe it's not even an installer. Maybe it's a bunch of manual tasks, right? We've seen, a document. This is how you install the tractor software. And it's all kinds of things like drag and drop this file, double click this reg file, do the hokey cokey, right? Okay. Create a manual shortcut. That is not an installer, and
So,
it's
so
fraught with.
lots of testing and staging to think about and consider when doing something like this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's there's no magic answer that it'll just work because it might not just work. And if it works today, it's all about future proofing, right?
Yeah.
We talk a lot with clients about future proofing, and I was just touching on different technologies. You shouldn't use technology for technology's sake, right? I wouldn't be an advocate of that. Again, to one of the points you said at the beginning, it's all about scalability and simplicity. That's what it's all about.